Welcome to Listen English Story. My name is Daniel. I'm an old man now, but I still remember the days when my father was my hero. He was tall and strong, and his warm smile made our small house feel like home. We lived in a quiet town near the mountains, where life was simple but happy. My father worked at a local factory, leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. My mother took care of the house, cooking meals, while my younger sister, Emma, played in the garden. I helped my mother with chores, and in the evenings, we all laughed together. Father told us stories. But one winter, everything changed. Father started coming home later than usual, his face pale and his hands trembling. When Mother asked if he was okay, he simply said, "I'm just tired." We believed him, but soon he stopped smiling. He became irritable, snapping at Mother over small things. He barely ate and often stayed out all night. Emma would cry, and I tried to comfort her, but I didn't understand what was happening. One day, I saw Father talking to a stranger near the factory. The man handed him a small bag, and Father quickly hid it in his coat. His face looked worried. When he got home, he locked himself in his room. Mother whispered to me, "Something is wrong with your father." Fear settled in my chest. The man I admired was slipping away. Weeks later, Father lost his job. The factory owner said he was late too many times. Mother started sewing clothes to make money, while I collected firewood to sell. Emma stopped playing and sat alone, staring out the window. One night, Father came home angry, breaking a chair and throwing things against the wall. Mother held us close, whispering, "Stay strong." But I didn't know how. Then, one morning, Father was gone. His coat and shoes were missing. Mother searched everywhere, but he had vanished. "When will Father come back?" Emma asked. I had no answer. Days passed before a neighbor told us he had seen Father near the river, looking thin and lost. I ran there, but he was nowhere to be found. The winter grew colder, and so did our home. Mother sewed late into the night, her hands raw. Emma stopped speaking, just watching the door, waiting. One afternoon, Mother took my hand. "We have to find him," she said. We bundled up and walked through the snow, asking anyone if they had seen him. Finally, someone whispered, "Check near the old bridge." My heart pounded. The bridge was unsafe, broken with age. We followed footprints in the snow, leading to a small shed by the river. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled bitter. Father sat on the floor, wrapped in a dirty blanket. His face was thin, his beard unkempt. He looked at us but said nothing. Emma ran to him, crying, "Come home, Father." He turned away, covering his face. Mother knelt beside him. "We miss you," she whispered. His shoulders shook. "I can't," he muttered. He felt like a stranger to me, but we brought him home that night. Mother washed his face and fed him warm soup. He ate slowly, his hands still shaking. Emma clung to his arm. "Don't leave again," she begged. He nodded, but his eyes were empty. For a while, it seemed like things might get better. Father stayed in bed, resting. Mother smiled again, humming as she sewed. Emma drew pictures of our family and taped them to the walls. But one evening, Father disappeared again. His bed was empty and the window was open. Snow had blown into the room. Mother sank into a chair, her face in her hands. "What do we do?" she whispered. I ran into the night, calling his name until my throat burned. Finally, I found him near the factory, talking to the same stranger. The man handed him a small bottle, and Father drank from it desperately. "Stop!" I shouted. Father turned, his eyes wild. "Go home, Daniel," he yelled. The stranger shoved me, and I fell into the snow. I walked home alone, tears freezing on my cheeks. Mother hugged me when I got back. "We won't give up," she said. But I wondered, how do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved? Spring arrived, but the warmth didn't. Father's absence weighed heavily on us. Mother stopped humming, her hands moving slower. Emma barely spoke. I started following Father in secret. Every day after school, I watched him from the shadows. The stranger came often, giving him bottles and small packages. One day, Father collapsed near the factory gate. The stranger kicked him before walking away. My heart pounded as I ran to Father. He lay curled on the ground, trembling. "Help me," he whispered. I dragged him home. Mother cried when she saw him. She cleaned his face and put him to bed. "We need a doctor," she said, but we had no money. That night, Father thrashed in his sleep, screaming words that made no sense. Mother tried to soothe him, but he pushed her away. Emma hid in the corner, covering her ears. The next day, Mother went to the church, begging the priest for help. He came and prayed over Father. "This is a sickness of the soul," he said. "He gave us bread and milk, but his words felt empty." Weeks passed. Father grew weaker. The stranger stopped coming. Perhaps he knew Father had nothing left to give. One evening, Father called my name. His voice was barely a whisper. I sat beside him, and he gripped my hand. "I'm sorry," he said, his eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to be your hero." I wept, resting my head on his chest. That night, his breathing slowed. As the sun rose, Father was gone. After the funeral, the house felt too big and too quiet. Mother stopped sewing. Emma no longer waited by the window. We buried Father under an old oak tree at the edge of town. "Will he see us from heaven?" Emma asked. "Yes," I said, though I wasn't sure. Winter came early. We had little money. I worked at the market, carrying boxes for shopkeepers. Mother cleaned houses. One day, I saw the stranger again, smirking near the factory. Anger burned inside me. "You ruined him," I yelled. He only laughed. "Your father made his own choices," he said. I threw a stone, but he walked away. Years passed. Emma left for school with the help of a kind teacher. Mother grew frail. When she fell ill, I sold Father's old coat to buy medicine, but it was too late. One morning, she whispered my name, smiled weakly, and was gone. Emma arrived too late, collapsing in grief. We buried Mother beside Father, 2 flowers resting on the graves. Emma returned to school. I stayed in the empty house, haunted by memories. One afternoon, I walked to the river, thinking of letting the cold take me. But then I heard Emma's voice in my head. Don't leave me. I turned back. Years later, Emma returned with her daughter, Laura. This is your niece, she said. Laura had Father's smile. Seeing her reminded me that stories don't end, they change. We repaired the house, filling it with laughter once more. One day, Emma asked me to live with her. You shouldn't be alone. But I shook my head. This is my home. Instead, I promised to visit. Now, every Sunday, I visit the graves, telling Father and Mother about Laura's laughter and Emma's strength. The wind carries my words, and I like to think they hear me. The river still flows, but I no longer fear its cold. Life moves forward, and so do we.